We're going to be in the book of John this afternoon. And in order for us to get a better understanding of the stories found in this book, we have to first know who the author John was. See, John was probably in his teens when he was following Jesus. The Jewish culture made it customary for a child to begin his religious training at the age of 5 years old and to continue until 12 and 13. A young boy. If a boy was intelligent and interested in continuing his religious studies, he would then seek a rabbi to disciple him and would follow and pattern his life after him until the age of 30 years old. If this pattern was consistent with the followers of Jesus, some of them may have joined Jesus as early as the age of 13. Wow. And they would have still been teenagers at the time of Jesus' death, resurrection, and ascension. See, although the Bible doesn't give us the exact ages of the disciples of Jesus, it is likely that they were all between the ages of 13 and 30. John was likely the youngest, and Peter likely the oldest because he was married. Interesting, right? John lived the longest, passing away in the last decade of the first century, according to church history. 60 years after walking with Jesus, John experienced 60 years of church growth. Even if John were in his 90s when he died, he would have been no more than 30 years old at the time he was with Jesus. John was the disciple that Jesus said on the cross, "Behold your mother. Woman, behold your son." Scholars say John was probably in his 20s at the time of the crucifixion. But what's the purpose of this book? What's the purpose of the Gospel of John? The author himself cites the purpose of the Gospel of John as follows in John chapter 20, verse 31. "But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name." Some scholars suggest the original audience were the Christians of Hellenized background. Jewish Christian group could have been expanded over time through the addition of converts from the world of Greek paganism. Some were also Samaritans. The central conflict in this gospel involves the Jewish authorities on one hand and Jesus and his followers on the other hand. John lived to witness this conflict. He saw Jesus proving himself to be the Son of God, and he lived the rest of his life teaching the second generation believers to hold on to this faith. He also sought to correct a false teaching that was spreading in the first century. John was one of the sons of Zebedee, and his brother's name was James. He came from a family of fishermen, and Jesus called for them to leave everything behind and to follow him. There are 7 miracles mentioned in the book of John. 7. The first is changing of water to wine in John chapter 2. The second, healing the royal official's sons in John chapter 4. The third, healing the paralytic at the Pool of Bethesda, John 5. And the fourth, feeding over 5,000 with fish and loaves, John 6. The fifth, walking on water, John 6, verse 15. The sixth, healing a man born blind. And the seventh, raising Lazarus from the dead. 7 miracles specifically mentioned in this book. This is not a coincidence. 7 is a biblical number that we know represents completion. And John, the author, did not make it a coincidence to mention 7 miracles and ending the last one in resurrection. He was highlighting once again and proving the point that Jesus was God. I can only imagine the adventure it must have been to physically follow Jesus in your teens. No day was probably the same. It sounds like it was a mixture of adventure, comedy, horror, all in one. One thing's for sure, when you're following Jesus, you won't be bored. You didn't know what would happen today. There's a story that's found in Mark chapter 5. When Jesus heals Jairus' daughter when he gets to this synagogue leader's house. And it says in verse 37 that he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John. Only 3 he allowed to come in the house with him. On another occasion, we see in Mark chapter 9 that Jesus takes Peter, James, and John, the same 3 again, and leads them up on a high mountain apart by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. His clothes become shining, exceedingly white like snow, such as no laundry on earth can whiten them. And Elijah appeared to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And a cloud came and overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud, "This is my beloved Son. Hear him." Suddenly, when they had looked around, they saw no one anymore, only Jesus. There's a reason why John was one of the people Jesus chose to reveal himself to. It's safe to say that Jesus trusted him. He trusted him with his mother, and he trusted him to share his truth, the way, and the life. So let's follow young man John in one of his many adventures with Jesus in John chapter 5, verse 1. Follow along with me. John chapter 5, verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him laying there, and he knew that he had already been in this condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" I don't know about you, but I hate when people ask me obvious questions. In a few minutes, we're going to gather downstairs for potluck, and we're going to get a plate, some utensils, a napkin. And can you imagine someone turning around to you and saying, "Are you hungry?" No. What gave that one away? It's such an obvious answer, right? But yet Jesus chooses to ask him this. This man, who's only identified based on his illness, is there with a number of other sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, and they're all waiting for their turn just to be healed. Why did Jesus bother asking this question? Let's continue reading. The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into this pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him, "Who was cured? It is the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed." He answered them, "He who made me well said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" Then they asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Even though Jesus asked this man an obvious question, the man wasn't able to answer it. You're in line with a plate, your utensils and your napkins, waiting to get some food. Someone turns around and tells you, "Are you hungry?" And you say, "The line is so long. I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat." That's not the question. Do you want to be made well? You see, this man has been sick for so long. He probably saw so many people going into the pool first. He saw so many people getting healed. He probably got tired of asking people to help him up. He got tired of trying to reach the pool first. Being healed now was no longer an option. He no longer had faith to be healed. All he saw was why it was impossible. Jesus repeatedly says in the Bible, "Your faith has made you well." This man thought that the only way he could get healed was by him getting to the pool first, when an angel comes down and stirs it, not realizing that he was at the right location, but just had the wrong mentality. This man was living in Jerusalem. The definition of Jerusalem is possession of peace. He was fine lying in front of a pool called Bethesda. The meaning of Bethesda is house of mercy. So this is what blows my mind. He was meant to possess peace at the house of mercy, but yet he laid there stuck, crippled with reasons why he couldn't. Not only was this man at the right place, but he was talking to the right person. He was talking to God himself. But he was so consumed with his inabilities that this man didn't realize that the healer was in front of him. When the Jews asked him, "Who made you well?" he didn't even know. This makes me consider that this man possibly didn't hear about Jesus performing miracles. All he knew was that this pool, an angel comes down, and the first person to get there gets healed. That's all he knew. John is highlighting how dependent these multitude of sick people were in this pool for healing. Now, there are many debates on whether this pool being able to heal was God's doing or the enemy's. There are many debates whether these angels were God's angels or the Lucifers, because why would God choose to heal in this manner, in a competitive nature? Now, I may not have all the answers, but what I can clearly see is that the name of this pool is Bethesda, which means house of mercy. And it was located in Jerusalem, which means possession of peace. Possession of peace in the house of mercy. Does Lucifer want to give us peace or mercy? I don't know. Another thing I see clearly is that an angel came down. And what I remember was that Lucifer and 1/3 of his angels were already cast down from heaven. That's what I see clearly in this text. This man, he wasn't the only one that was at the right place but had the wrong mentality, but the Jews were there too. See, when the Jews saw this man who was cured, the first thing they said is, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed. Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" That man, he didn't break any of God's commands. He violated only the traditions of the Pharisees. It seems like these Jews were hanging around the Pool of Bethesda, surrounded by a multitude of sick people, and they would rather see them sick than for them to be healed on the Sabbath. Mercy. They know God, are at the house of mercy, yet have no mercy. They are at the right place, but have the wrong mentality. Yet they are serving God. They're in Jerusalem, which means possessions of peace, yet are busy disturbing those that have found peace because it's not in the manner they deem appropriate. The Bible warns us to be careful of these types of people because they're going to be at the right place. False prophets who come in sheep clothing, but inwardly they're like wolves. You will know them by their fruits. See, God will lead you to the right location, but be careful who you surround yourself with there, because not everyone there is going to have the right mentality. Who knows how long the man was lying there? How many conversations he had with the other sick people around him? And what kind of conversation they must have had? He probably wasn't the only one that lost hope in being healed. They probably had venting sessions on never being able to make it on time, complaining together because misery loves company. Could you also be at the right place but have the wrong mentality? Could you be in the right work environment, but you're too busy complaining that you're not getting paid enough to see that God is trying to use you to witness to a specific coworker? Could you be at the right church, but you choose to not speak to anyone, yet you pray to God that you're lonely? Could your children be going to the right school, an Adventist school, but yet you're frustrated because it costs too much? Could you be at the right school, yet you feel like you're missing out because you keep comparing your school to others? Could you be in the right Pathfinder club, but yet you don't want to go because there's only 5 people there? Could you be in the right ministry, but yet you struggle to attend meetings because you keep butting heads with the members in it? Could you be in the right Sabbath school class, but yet you choose to never speak up because you've made yourself believe that you have nothing important to contribute? Are we at the right location but have the wrong mentality? Could Abbotsford be the city of peace, and this church his chosen house of mercy? Could Jesus have brought us all here together for a specific reason, to experience peace through his mercy, but we're too busy making excuses why we can't? Are we at the right location but have the wrong mentality? Jesus doesn't even bother responding to what this man says. He extends to him mercy and gives him peace by healing him. This man, he didn't know Jesus, but most of us here do. Yet we still find reasons why things can't work out. Are you like this man who didn't know Jesus? Then let me tell you about the God. There's only one God. Let me tell you about the God. Jesus, the Son of God, who came to this earth to take everything you've ever done and everything you will ever do on himself. He paid the consequences of your sin through death so that you could be forgiven by God and set free from sin. This is God. But not only did he do that, but he rose again the next day, proving that he is God and can forgive sins. And he defeated what no man can ever brag that they defeated. No man has ever been able to do this. Jesus defeated death. Death could not contain God. That's how powerful God is. That's the type of God we serve. This type of God, he can do anything. And we need to be reminded of this. Jesus wants to impact us. So he does his part by bringing us where we need to be. But we have to do our part by having the right mentality. Because being at the right place with the wrong mentality, we might as well be lost. Jesus does his part by bringing us where we need to be. But church, we have to do our part by matching our minds and making sure we align with God's will. We have to check our mentality. Let's not waste this opportunity. It's time for us to realize we are at the right location and take the steps to change our way of thinking about others, about ourselves, about the location, so we can fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. That is our part. You are here for a reason. Now truly be here. Open your eyes to what God wants to do for you and what he's already doing. Amen.